If you've been trying to fall pregnant for a while now and you have found this journey has sent you down a rabbit hole of self-discovery, then this episode is for you. If you love to get into the more woo-woo side of yoga and just really delve into how these practices can support you on more of a spiritual level as you're trying to conceive, then you will not want to miss this episode. Today, I am speaking with Kerry from Fertility Yoga about how these practices, they don't just support your fertility, they can literally change your life. And all of that and so much more is coming up. Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends both science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Here each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so you can stop stressing that you'll never have a baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. I am so thrilled to have you with me here today and just always so appreciate you giving your time and your energy to come and hang out with me here. And we have an awesome conversation coming up on today's episode. We are speaking with my very good friend, Kerry from Fertility Yoga. And Kerry is, as you can probably tell, also a fertility yoga teacher. And she is someone that I met a few years after I started teaching this practice. And just loved her approach. She had a very long and very difficult fertility journey of her own. But like me, these practices helped her eventually to fall pregnant naturally. Not once, but twice. And so she's got a really amazing story. And I love the way that she approaches yoga because she is so real about it. You know, she's all for just being in your pajamas, getting onto your mat and moving your body in a way that feels really good for you. And then I love also the way that she explains how you can take yoga off the mat as well. And I think that's a really important part of the practice. And sometimes we miss this because so much of what we do isn't about what you see on the mat. It is about the rest of your life. So she's going to talk about where people are at normally when they come to her, you know, what they're looking for when they're coming to a fertility yoga practice and how she helps them not just get pregnant, but change their life in the meantime for the better, and how all of these practices will support you throughout pregnancy, birth, new motherhood, and beyond. So this is a proper combination of the sciencey side, the woo-woo side, and all of the amazing fertility yoga things in between. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I do. Kerry, welcome to the podcast. It's so amazing to have you here with me today, fellow fertility yoga teacher, which is not always an easy thing to find. I feel like there's not that many of us in the world. So when I found you, I was very excited to meet you, and I have learned so much from you since then. So big welcome.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you. This is so exciting to be on your podcast because you were on my podcast and now I'm on your podcast and your podcast is amazing too. So I'm just really happy to be here. I love talking about fertility yoga.
Oh, yes.
So let's do it.
We are going to do it. We're going to go deep. We're going to go sciencey. We're going to go woo-woo, all of the things. But can we start, I know all the great things, can we start by learning a little bit about you? Can you tell me about your background and how you came to doing this kind of work?
Sure. I will try and be concise because I could probably, it's a long story, but in a nutshell, I've been teaching. Yeah, it's hard to make it small, a smaller story, but I've been teaching yoga for about 20 years, fertility yoga for 8 years. When I started teaching fertility yoga, it wasn't really a thing. Like there was 3 or 4 people. Then Australia is actually a little hotspot for fertility yoga. So there were some people in Australia, some people in the States, but really there wasn't a lot of fertility yoga going on. So that was about 8 years ago. And the reason I started teaching fertility yoga really was based on my own experiences with infertility, pregnancy loss, IVF, IUI, navigating that whole journey. And when you were on my podcast, this is what we talked about was doing IVF abroad because we both have that in common. And so I did most of my treatment in Germany. And I was, it was a 3.5 year journey of navigating different language, which is really difficult, added stress to the whole situation. And then, yeah, we did like it very similar to so many people, like their stories of, waiting a little longer, or I was waiting just to find somebody I actually wanted to share my DNA with, which took a while. And so when I did, and we weren't in a major hurry either. So when we did decide to do it, it was when we were in Germany and it just didn't happen. And then the snowball started, like fertility clinic, IUIs, miscarriages, let's do IVF. Like it was just rolling into it all. And there wasn't a lot of pausing conversations, especially around mental and emotional health and other things that I could do and my husband could do to help support the IVF process. And because I was a yoga teacher at this time, I was still practicing my yoga, but I noticed this huge drastic shift. I went from power vinyasa yoga, arm stand or arm balances and handstands and all the things to a more restorative style, a softer style of yoga. And so when we moved back to Boston, I just said, hey, let's do this. Like, there's nobody doing this really. I think this could be a thing. Like, I'm going to go for it. So I did. And that's how it started.
Mm-hmm.
That's the story. And then now I have a virtual yoga studio, Fertile Body Yoga, which supports those that are going through their fertility journey. So similar to you.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing. And if people want to learn more about your journey, and your journey was a long one, I highly recommend you go and listen to Kerry's podcast as well, because you share so openly. And I think it's always just, I find really helpful to listen to others' journeys and to know what they've been through. And especially when you know that they had a happy ending on the other side and it all turned out
Right.
okay.
I forgot that part.
Oh, yeah, that part.
My happy ending. My happy ending. Yeah. So after 3+ years of fertility treatment, we decided, my husband and I, we were like, we hit this moment of surrender, which was, I think we can have a great life without children. And up to that point, there was so much like, we need to have kids. We need to have kids. Kids are going to make us happy, blah, 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 blah. We just got wrapped up in it so much that then we had this point where we're like, this is taking over our lives. We want to reclaim our lives, live again. And when we did that, with the next month, I was pregnant. And, of course, the fertility doctor was like, oh, your chances of getting pregnant naturally are like 1 in 20 billion trillion. But it did happen. And then I gave birth to my son. And then 9 months postpartum, after having sex probably once, was pregnant again. And it was really like, whoa, what the hell? Because we thought we had our miracle baby. What are the chances, right? So, so yes, there was a happy ending to that story. So
I love your story. And I have a very similar one, not exactly the same, but just this idea of being, who knows where doctors get these success rates and these possibility percentages from. But I was told I wasn't going to be able to conceive on my own. And I think one of the things that we do with this work is, yes, ultimately, we want people to get pregnant and we want them to have their family. And let's not lie, that is a goal, but
yes.
it is so much more than that. Can you tell me what fertility yoga is to you and what you are trying to help people with on top of getting pregnant?
That is a huge question. Like, because you warned me, like, I'm going to ask you this. And I was sitting down trying to write some notes about it. And I was like, wow, what is fertility yoga? I had a moment. I was going deep there. For me, I think of fertility yoga as sort of a one-stop shop for so many things that are ignored during the fertility journey or going through IVF, or if you're struggling to conceive in any way. So we always go, because of our Western society and mindset and patriarchy, and don't get me going about the patriarchy, but right, we go straight to Western medicine and say, what's wrong with me? Right? Like I'm not getting pregnant. I should be getting pregnant. What's wrong with me? And then the doctors can go and find out, well, this level is low and this isn't optimal and blah, 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 and this and that. And oh, you have unexplained infertility. We don't even know what it is. And it's a lot. And then you roll right into the IVF process or IUIs or some sort of hormone drugs or something. But there's so little support on all the other things that come with fertility. It's so complex. So fertility yoga to me is all the other stuff, all the other stuff that the doctors don't take care of in the doctor's office. And it's so nice because it is a really beautifully wrapped little gift, if we can get into it, and go beyond just the poses that fertility yoga or yoga in general offers. So yeah, it's all the layers of the self: mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual practices as well. We can build community with the yoga practice. It's and physical too. Like it does help physically as well too. I want to make sure that that's in there. Hormonally, nervous system regulation, stress management, like it's all there, and it's so accessible. Right? Like it's not particularly expensive, right? Like your membership is what, $50 a month? Like
40.
40? Okay, well, it should be 50 at least.
We'll fix that, will we?
Right? Or I do a series, a 6-week live stream series, and it's like $100, where you go to the acupuncturist once and it's $100 plus, right? So it is, and it's not a crazy yoga practice doing weird, crazy poses. So there's really no worry about, can I do a headstand or not? Or am I flexible or not? Because it's totally not what it's about. Did that sum it up okay?
That was a really beautiful description. And I want to go back to two things. So what I think, well, this is what I find with most of my students, and what got me into fertility yoga was two things. It was this idea of, I wasn't a yoga teacher, so I didn't really understand the complete package that yoga is, but I thought it was just some exercises on a mat. And I thought, great, I love exercise. That's cool. It's something that's going to help me continue that, and it will get me pregnant. So that's what got me into fertility yoga. Yeah. But then you realize it's so much more.
It is.
So what do you think really helps people the most when they're trying to conceive? I mean, you mentioned so many things, but what is it that people come to you looking for? And then what do you think they actually find when they get there?
Oh, yeah. Deep question, Jen. Okay. So I'm like, it's similar what you just said. I don't always know the catalyst of like why people sign up for my classes, but I do know, I would say in general, it's like what you said, like I want to get pregnant. Maybe I'm doing IVF, maybe not. Someone said, or I read somewhere, that fertility yoga helps, and it does. There's research to support it, that IVF success rates are higher for those that have a sustained over time yoga practice, not just one off. So, that is generally the catalyst of people, like why they sign up. And like you said, if they actually come more than a few times, it's like a light bulb goes off. They're like, oh, right. Like I'm not just coming here to do the poses. And I think what yoga does so wonderfully, as I mentioned before, is like to hit all the different layers. And oh my gosh, where to start? So for me, one of my favorite things and how I teach is I really include the subtle body or the energetic body in the practice, which is part of yoga. Like you cannot separate it from the yoga asana practice that we do. We don't like to talk about it because it's too woo-woo-y, or like, oh, you're an energy healer, let's balance chakras and all this stuff, right? But not like that. More like we all have life force energy running through us. Like there just is. That's what makes us alive, right? Animated people. And there's life force energy in everything that's around us that is alive. And we forget that. And a lot of the Eastern cultures, it's a given. Like it is just part of living. It's not questioned. It's not considered woo woo. It just is. And so it is part of yoga, which is an Eastern tradition. So for me, when I'm teaching, I can't even remember what your question was, but but I'm talking about energy, so I get excited.
But they come to you and they expect one thing, but what is it that they really discover
Okay,
once
right.
they get there? Yeah, which you're
Like,
touching on beautifully.
what am I talking about? Yeah, so the energetics. I think that is what the light bulb is when they start to feel their energy flowing in a balanced way through their body. So really thinking about the fertility journey, it's a lot. It's so much up in the head, and there's so much mental, there's decisions to make, a research to do, and all the things. Remember this appointment and that appointment. We get so stuck up in the head. Right. So all the energy is just cerebral. And the body, I always make this in class, like your head is like a big balloon and your body's like the little stick figure, right? So we got to drain some of that energy down into the body and get things flowing all through us. So with moving the body in asana, will move energy. Meditation moves energy. Visualization moves energy. Yeah, just pranayama, breathing. Like it's all just amazing for us. That makes us feel so good at the end of class. And I think that's what people say, oh, I just feel so good. What is that? I'm like, it's the energy flowing through
it's
you.
Magic.
It's magical. It's magic stuff. And I like to talk a lot about embracing the feminine energies of the journey. Do you want me to get into that now?
Please, because you mentioned
okay?
something a little bit earlier about when you go to your doctor in this Western medical system that we have, and it's this idea of what's wrong with me. How can you fix me? What can I do to make myself better? And I think that's what is so important. So talk about there where you were going a bit more in relation to that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So this idea, so if we look at energies, masculine, feminine, not talking gender specific, but more so the characteristics of feminine and masculine. So when we think about fertility in general, it's a fairly feminine thing. It is about being nurtured and nourished and like full and luscious and juicy and like all these really beautiful words that unfortunately our society doesn't value as much in a Western society. And instead we value more of the masculine, doing and right, linear thinking, being rational about everything. And that's why the woo woo thing happens, right? And control is a huge part of it. Even IVF is a very masculine energy procedure. If we think about like, okay, here's your body, we're going to take this piece out and this out, and we're going to put them together in a dish and then do this and then put them back together and put them back in you and see what happens, right? It is so masculine. It's so controlling, right? Here's a birth control pill. Here's the pill for this and this hormone and that hormone. And I'm not saying IVF is bad. People always think I'm saying poo-pooing on IVF. I'm not. It's wonderful. It's a miracle. And I'm not saying that, but we need to balance that. That's what I'm saying is like, we live here in the masculine all the time. The feminine is not valued, but this is what we need for our fertility is to be yoga, not do yoga, right? Be in your yoga pose, not do the yoga pose. So it's a really different way of looking at it. And that's what I think fertility yoga does really well, is connecting people to that feminine energy. It's
Yeah.
slower, it's more luscious. It's, well, the way I teach it, like, it's just really like being curious and getting into your body and just feeling and getting out of your head.
I love that so much. Our friend Lauren Enright, who's also a fertility yoga teacher,
Yeah.
I was chatting with her the other day, and she had this beautiful analogy. She said fertility yoga is everything you do on the mat is the training ground for the rest of your life. And that really stuck with me. I thought that was such an incredible way of explaining it. So what are some of the tools that you give women on the mat that then they can take out into their life?
Oh yeah, that's a big, beautiful. I just had Lauren on my podcast
I
too. We
listened
had
to
a
it. It
great
was an
conversation. We geeked
awesome
out
conversation.
about fertility yoga too. Yeah. So one of the things I like to convey to my students, I feel like often, and I did this too. So I'm not judging. I'm just like, I'm the mirror. I'm reflecting it back. But there is a tendency to think about doing everything for fertility, right? Like, okay, I'm going to drink this tea for fertility or clean up my diet for fertility because I want a baby, I want a baby. And like, this is exhausting. And then when we feel like or it doesn't work, right, then we abandon, right? These practices that we've introduced and tried, but not put too much effort into, and so on. So, one thing I like to talk about is that fertility is a function of our overall health and vitality. So it's not separate. It's not separate from the rest of our health. So one thing I try and do is like create a different mindset around, okay, yes, it's called fertility yoga and it's a fertility focused practice, but we're coming for more than fertility. We're coming for your overall health and well-being and vitality, and you'll get more out of it than just the fertility piece if you're open your mind to it. So that's kind of the first thing. The other thing I really like to pass on is well, fear is a big thing that comes up a lot. I had fear, I'm sure you had fear, like, right, like what would it be if I never have kids, or like it's scary to think those thoughts. And then what we do is our actions are based in those fears. So that's when we overcompensate, right? We do all the things and we have 50 million appointments and we're going here and there. And then we're doing all the things for fertility, but we're actually depleting ourselves and not able to harness any of the good stuff, that the reason why we're going to it. So one thing I emphasize is really leading from a place of love instead of fear when we're thinking about what we want to do for ourselves in the fertility journey. So, like, my question is always like, what's your why? Why do you want to have a child? Love is going to be the number one answer. I swear, every time. Oh, I have so much love to give. Right. And that is where you want to make your choices from, is the love and not the fear. So that's another big one. I encourage curiosity in the body as well. So not prescriptive yoga asana, like, okay, so do this pose, do that pose, do this pose. You're in the follicular phase, do that pose, do this pose. Which of course there are some poses that would be better for either stage. But really it is about moving into your body and exploring what feels good. There's no right or wrong. Like I really truly believe that. When we do the live streaming, I'm like, turn your cameras off. Like, I can't see you. I'm not going to pretend I can see you. I can't see you. Like, turn your cameras off, get in your private space and do you, like, do your thing. You can't see anybody else. Nobody's watching you. We're not doing anything crazy as far as like hurting our bodies. So I want you to move and shift and feel good in your body again. Because sometimes we get so disconnected from our physical body during this journey. Oh my gosh. What else can I say? Oh, rest is productive. So that's a big one. I think you would definitely agree with that, that our Western patriarchal society really has bred us to believe that if we're not doing something about a problem, then we're being lazy. And that is not true. And resting is doing something if your brain wants to go in that direction. But rest is, it's so important.
Isn't it?
So important.
And that is something that you can learn for the rest of your life. It's not just a fertility thing.
Yes. And it goes so beyond this. I think that's one thing I love is that everything can be carried over to the prenatal period, to the postnatal period, to parenting, to not parenting, to just life in general. So even though it's specific.
Yeah. It is. And I look at my two fertility journeys. You know, the first one, it was the very masculine, the pushing, the treatments, the let's go, let's go, let's go, let's not stop until we get there. Yeah. And I started the second journey the same way. And I was brought down by COVID. That was the thing that got in the way. And I couldn't do all of the things I wanted to do. And I would have. Yeah. And that's where, for me, yoga came into it. And that beautiful thing you just said before about finding what feels good in your body. I think that when I came to fertility yoga, it was the very first time in many years. And, you know, that includes a pregnancy and a postpartum recovery that I had actually asked myself, what feels good in my body? You know, it was always about what's the thing that's going to next get me pregnant. And then when I was pregnant, it's like, well, you know, there's all these, you don't want to put on too much weight and you've got to make sure that you're active and all that nonsense that goes along with, you know, not at any stage I just say what feels good to me right now. And that was such a gift, being able to give myself that. And I have absolutely no doubt that if I had learnt all of this the first time around, I don't think I would have had trouble conceiving the second time. And I bring that into my life now. And, you know, I have weeks where, you know, life gets in the way and we don't get enough sleep and we're busy and all of the things happen. But when you just say, what do I need right now? I need an afternoon with a cup of tea and a book, and giving yourself permission to do that, which I never would have given myself permission for. It just seems like such a foreign thing to do, isn't it? You know, if we're not doing, we're not productive,
especially
we're not worthy.
Women.
As women.
That's a whole other rabbit hole to go down.
We'll start a new podcast about that.
I've talked about it on my podcast a few times, but yeah, like, you're right. We need to give it's considered we're being lazy or not doing what we need to do or being selfish if we say, I'm just going to sit here for half an hour and read a book and drink tea. And that's what I need right now.
Yeah.
That it's hard. It's hard. We run around trying to please everybody all the time. So
all the time. And motherhood does us no favors in that regard. So that's why all of these tools that we teach now are so helpful for everything beyond. It's so much bigger than just getting that positive test, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, yes. Because then there will always be something else.
Oh wait, there's always something else. There's always
something else next. And once we attain what we desire, we move on to the next thing, right? And yoga teaches us that, like, it's very much like desire is one of the things that will cause suffering, is desiring all the time. And then when you get it, it's fleeting. And then you move on to the next thing and the next thing. And if you don't get it, then you're sad. And then you do, right? So instead it's like, where can we find contentment with what is? Yeah. So that we can not be so up and down roller coastering through the whole process.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Can we expand a little bit more on what you said about finding what feels good in the body? I noticed that most of my students are quite sort of type A in their approach to their fertility journey. They're like, they've got to do everything perfectly. They've got to do all the things. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And they get into this idea with yoga that they've got to do things right. And if they're not, they're doing it wrong. So what do you say to people that ask you, you know, am I doing this right? I don't want to do this wrong. What kind of guidance do you give them around that?
So I think first it's important to say, okay, there are if you're doing an IVF cycle, there are certain contraindications for certain types of the cycle that you do need to be aware of. For example, doing inversions when you're doing a stim cycle or deep closed twists and things like that add too much pressure in and around the ovaries, which are the size of grapefruits or whatever at the time. Like, it makes sense. All we have to do is step back and be like, okay, that makes some perfect sense. Like, I don't need to make a big deal about it. I just don't want to put pressure on my belly. So I'm not going to do poses that require that. So there are a few things that you want to just keep in mind, of course, just to really keep you safe. But also, I feel like when we're feeling safe, or like if there's a question, should I be doing this pose or not? And it is causing stress and anxiety within you, I always say, then just don't do it. Like, that one pose is not going to make or break anything. It's the practice on all the levels that is giving you the magic, right? It's not the pose, it's all the stuff. And part of that stuff is listening to your body, right? Part of the magic is going inside of yourself and knowing what the body wants. So I don't know if anybody's ever asked me, like, am I doing this pose right? I think maybe, I don't know.
Maybe it's more along the lines of like, how many times a week do I have to do this?
Yeah.
And for how long do I have to do this? I think that's probably more of a common question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes, yeah, I say, well, like, when you can, do it, right? And when you feel inspired, do it. Because sometimes we don't feel inspired, right? And other things take precedent. My thing I tell my students is, do one thing for yourself every day. And if it's yoga, awesome. If it's meditation, great. If it's going mindful walking with your dog, great. If it's sitting with your cup of tea and journaling or whatever, but just do one thing for yourself a day. There's no magic number. There's no magic formula. Like I said, there's no magic pill exactly like, do this and you'll get pregnant. There just isn't. So yeah, when you can, do it. And it doesn't, and I think another part of this is, a lot of students will think, okay, I have to do an hour class or an hour, 15-minute class. And I don't have time every day to do that. And I remind everybody, like, no, it can be a 1-minute meditation. It can be a 5-minute cat cow flow on the yoga mat. The hard part is getting to the yoga mat. Once you get there, your body takes over and it will do the thing. It will do the yoga. It's hard not to. Like, I do it to myself all the time. I'm like, just get on the mat. Just get on the mat, and things will happen. And sometimes it's 5 minutes or 20 or an hour, right?
And your body just knows what it needs. And that's the beautiful thing about this continued practice, is that you get more and more in tune with what your body wants on certain days. And it's going to change. Some days I just need to pop some pillows under my knees and lie down. Sometimes I need to move. I've got energy. It needs to get through my body. And it's such a gift being able to give yourself that intuition, your body, its ability to know what it needs, because that serves you in so many ways off the mat as well. So thank you.
Getting out of the head.
Getting out of the head. Oh,
into the body.
Said than done.
Yeah. So much easier said than it. But yeah, it's true. And then, like, your cycle will change how you feel about it. Like, your menstrual cycle, or if you're doing an IVF cycle, like, that will change your relationship to, like, the yoga asana practice. And then remembering that yoga is so much more than the asana, the poses that we do, right? It can be meditation. It can be just going inward for a little while, journaling. So, broaden, expand your view of yoga, and you'll realize you're doing it all the time. Really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One of the things I find a lot of people say to me is, I love yoga, Jen, but I hate meditation. I hate sitting down and doing my meditation. And I find it such a funny question, because yoga is meditation. It's just, not what you think meditation is. So how do
Yes.
you include meditation into your practices, and why do you think it is an important part of the fertility journey?
Oh, well, meditation is important. I think it is, I mean, if we want to go technical, if we want to talk about sort of like the science behind it, like we have this default mode network. Have you heard of this before? So your default mode network or state is when you're not purposefully focusing or thinking about doing, like you're writing a book or your email or whatever, but when you're just sort of like driving the car, or like doing something mindless, your brain goes into default mode and runs the scripts that your brain runs. And they're usually the same thing, just various different colors and variations of it. And I once heard this quote, like, 99% of your thoughts you will think again.
Mm.
So you're not missing out on anything
Yeah.
if you don't pay attention to what you're thinking. And I think meditation for me is sort of like it gives me a break
Mm.
from the script. However, the script becomes more apparent when you're meditating. So then you're like, okay, this is, oh my gosh, I'm thinking this. I'm thinking, okay, but right now I don't care. I'm going to let it go. Take a
Mm.
deep breath in, exhale. And meditation is not about clearing the mind of thought because the mind thinks. That's what it does. So we can't turn that off unless we're in deep sleep, right? So we just have to take a moment and be like, okay, I'm thinking again. I'm thinking again. And don't judge yourself for it
Mm.
and just kind of move on. How I use it in class, I use it more as, I call it the sacred pause, the pause between poses.
Mm.
So we do, say, a little series on the floor, and then we'll sit and we'll pause for like a minute or two, not very long, but just enough time to sort of create a gap, a pause between what you just did and what you're going to do next, so
Mm.
that you can reflect on how you feel
Mm.
inside.
Isn't that
That's how
brilliant?
it is.
And it's so much easier than saying, okay, I've got to set a timer for 20 minutes and sit down and just breathe and not think any thoughts, because who wants to do that? How easy is that? No, it's, a horrible
It's,
process for a lot of people, very
yeah,
uncomfortable. So
yeah,
you're right. Just incorporating it in small chunks and
yeah,
taking away, like you said, this feeling of judgment, oh, I'm thinking again. I
mhm,
shouldn't be thinking that. I should be thinking more positively, all of
yeah.
the things that we tell ourselves. So,
All the myths. There's so many myths associated with meditation, I
mm,
think, and that being one of them. Like it has to be 20 minutes or an hour, and
mm,
you have to sit in lotus pose, and it has to be quiet, and you're, on the top of the mountain. Like, no, like we're householders, right? We have lives to live. We're not monks. We're not, ascetics sitting on a hill. Then that's our job, is to sit and meditate all day long. Like we need to find a way to incorporate it into our householding life.
mm,
And it can be short. It can be little like in the car waiting for something. Just take 3 deep breaths. Like that is meditation if you're focused on your breath.
yeah,
Um,
amazing.
so many myths
Yeah.
around meditation.
One thing I love about you, Kerry, is that you are very much into Ayurveda, which is sort of the sister science to yoga. And a
Yeah.
part of Ayurveda is looking at people's doshas and how that shows up in their life, and then being able to use tools like yoga to help balance out the doshas. So, again, this could be a whole podcast topic on its own, but can you tell us, like, what are the doshas and how do they relate to fertility and what we teach?
Okay. Yes, this could be years of podcasting material. But
I'm getting
so
comfortable.
get comfortable, get your tea. I'll try and make it concise as possible. So you people, if you're listening, like you've probably heard, if you've hung out in the yoga world for a little while, this well, that was so pitta, or that was so vata of you, and oh, I'm so kapha today, or something like this, right? So there's three main doshas. It's a tri-doshic theory, and it's really like, what is your constitution? What are you made up of? And it's based on the elements, and earth, water, fire, air, and space. And so their different combinations create different doshas, and then each person has one dominant dosha usually, and then one subdominant dosha. So like you're a little bit higher on two, and one really high, one medium, and then usually you have another one that's not quite as influencing. So the three doshas are vata, which is air and space. So if we think about these sorts of qualities of those elements, right? Like swirling, moving, like light and airy, right? All these things. Someone who is a vata is also like that. They're like, woo, and they're all over the place and kind of whatever when it's their dominant dosha. And there's so much to figuring out your dominant dosha. Like it can be part of it, like how you look and the color of your hair and how thick your hair is, how you speak. You speak. Some people speak really quickly. Some people speak more slowly. And like all these different things. How you menstruate. It's just how you digest food can all be influenced by your dosha. So that's vata, air and space. And then pitta is fire and water. Pitta, fiery people, like people that are very focused, who love to succeed, do things right. Perfectionism runs rampant. Maybe not rampant, but it's more of a pitta characteristic that we see. And then kapha is earth and water. So earthy, watery things, right, are sort of heavier, slower, more juicy, that sort of thing. So solid, stable. So that is earth, that is kapha. So there is some benefit to knowing what your dominant dosha is, your prakriti, it's called. But what's really, I think, important too for fertility is your vakruti. It is like your imbalance. So where is your big imbalance? And I would say that the majority of the people that I work with have a vata imbalance in the fertility journey, which means lots up in their head, spinning, swirling thoughts, not grounded, not in their bodies, right? There's just like, what do I do? What do I do next? What can I do? Like there's just nothing holding them down to earth, right? And that's where fertility yoga is so great, because it's earthy. It is grounding. Like that is one of the things I'm really trying to do, is to get out of the vata headspace and into the body and into the kapha. Yeah. And sometimes in general, in the fertility world, like if you're dominant kapha, you'd be more prone to like depression. So like the heavier, slower feelings, right? Whereas somebody who's vata would be anxiety, which is airy and moving quickly. And then pitta is more like anger and frustration that comes through.
And I'm sure just even listening to that, maybe if you're listening to this, you can recognize where you're sort of fitting into that. And then the benefits of being able to balance out through yoga, through some of these practices is so helpful. Thank you for explaining that, Kerry. And yeah, we do need to one day go into that in a bit more detail.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And yoga is helpful, but really Ayurveda is really a lot about the food that you're putting in your body. I think my teacher says like it's all about digestion, not just food, but like you digest with your senses, right? Your eyes, your ears, like what are you taking in, and are you able to digest it? And when you can't digest what's going in, that's what stress is. You're stressed because you can't digest everything that's coming at you. And fertility is really like that. There's so much always coming at you, or you're waiting for the next shoe to drop.
Yeah.
If something good happens, right? Like it's really, it's a lot. So.
It's a lot. Thank you. I have one last question for you. And because I know you run a virtual studio, as do I, which just provides people with so much accessibility to their yoga practice. I mean, you can be in your pajamas. It can be the morning, it can be the evening, it's so easy to fit into your life. But I do find a lot of people kind of still want to go to a yoga studio because they like that kind of connection. So how do we balance that? I mean, do you think it's important to have a home practice, but do you think it's important to keep the connection as well?
Oh, I think both are so important. I mean, I taught fertility yoga in person for
Mm.
years in Boston, and it was so special. It was beautiful. It was an amazing experience. I miss it all the time. It's different. It is just different when you're in the room with everybody's energy all together. And I would do Reiki and I would do like it was just different. And I'd play the music I wanted to play. Like it would just like I could create more of the atmosphere I
Mm.
wanted. And then I think students really found it great to connect in person with other people. That being said, a lot of people I know, they're like, oh, no, no, I hated going to the studio because they were scared they were going to run into somebody that they might
Mm.
know and be like, what are you doing here? What class are you taking? Oh, I'm taking a fertility yoga class. Right. Like they didn't want to, or like show up and have their like boss in the same room as
Mm.
them and like going through. Right. So there is also so many great things about having practice at home too. Like I love it. Like I like turning my lights off and playing my music and creating that sacred space in your home. And if possible, if you can leave your yoga mat out somewhere and not roll it up every time, because it's one
Mm.
more step, right, to get on the mat.
Mm.
But many of my students love it because they create a place where they know, like I have relaxed in this, like I'm capable of relaxing. Like I can see myself here relaxing last night in class. Like I know I can do it. I know I can be in a parasympathetic response, which we haven't even talked about the nervous system, but you do
Mm.
that all the time. So like it's, important to be parasympathetic when we can. And they love it. They like being able to put their diffuser on and put their fairy lights on and their candles and whatever. So I think there's really benefit to both. If you can
Mm.
find an in-person fertility yoga
Well, that's
class,
the thing too. Yeah.
that's the hard part. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, I did mine in Boston for like 5 years in person, and I mean, it was a struggle, like, to convince studios to continue because they're used to, like, 40 people in a class, right? Where I'd be like, "Okay, I have, like, 7 people," but that's a really good show, by the
Mm.
way, for fertility yoga. So, um, yeah, if you can find one, great. I don't do Are there any in Australia in person?
There would be me.
Are you doing them in person?
I do workshops occasionally, but
Yeah,
not regular weekly classes or anything like that because as you
yeah.
said, it seems so niche, but it isn't because you realize how many people are struggling with fertility when you start talking about it. But yeah, you're
Mhm.
right. I suppose it will get there. I suppose there's not a lot of teachers that teach it as well. So
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
hard to well, like, on a business sense, it's hard to access, this, like, to be in front of the eyeballs of the right person that is going
Yeah.
to go, "Oh my gosh, yes, this is what I've been looking for," and then get in their car and drive and show up. It's a lot easier. It's, one more thing
Mm.
to do on your busy schedule.
That
It's
is
much
true.
easier to do it at home.
Totally.
And
Which
I
is
think
appealing.
Yeah, and I think that there's great connections. I have people that have met through the Zoom room, and they go for tea and coffee because they live close to each other.
Same,
Um,
actually. Isn't that
and
beautiful?
and it's so cool,
Mm.
and I can feel it, like, even over the Zoom, I swear, like, when I'm doing a class, I can feel when everybody is parasympathetic, like, I can
Mm.
feel it. Just know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is, but I'm like, "Oh, okay, everybody is there. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave them there for a little bit." Um, so
Mm.
yeah, it's a little different experience,
Mm.
but
I mean, it's nice to be able to practice at home on your own. But then I find that this idea of the virtual studio is a beautiful, happy medium because you get both. You get that connection with others. You get
Mhm.
to show up and talk to people, and, everyone's in the same boat when you're doing a fertility class, right? So it is lovely that you get to do it the way you want to do it. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for everything that you do, Kerry. I love how
thank you.
Open you are. You're so real. Like you say exactly what is in your mind in a really concise way. And yeah, I've just gotten so much from you. Where can people learn more about you and connect with you if they want to?
Well, I want to say that you inspire me too. Whenever I see your Instagram, I'm like, I could do better. I could do more on Instagram. And I sometimes don't. It is not my forte, Instagram, I'll tell you that. But you inspire me to want to be better.
Thanks.
You're so good at it. And relatable. I think that's what I love about you, is that you're relatable. You're easy to like. Right? Like, you're accessible. Okay. So how people can find me. So my website is Fertile Body Yoga. Pretty easy. The podcast that I do is called Fringe Fertility, and that's on Apple and Spotify. And yeah, in the studio, I have live stream classes. I do them in series, so like 6 weeks, and then take some time off and so on. So you'd have to just look to see what's coming up, and have bigger programs that I was telling you about, more not just fertility yoga, but also mindset shifting, and then like working and supporting people through a 40-day mindful practice, yoga nidra, like so many, there's just so much going on. I do lots of cool workshops as well, like spirit baby workshops and art therapy, or whatever collaboration comes my way. So yeah, there's always just something fun going on. Lots of on-demand programs too, very specific for when people are in their cycles, like one for frozen embryo transfer. I have one for pregnancy loss. I have one for early pregnancy after loss and or IVF, because that's a very delicate time for many, because that pregnancy positive test isn't always a woo. It's like, oh shit, right? So there's lots. There's a chakra program in there. There's just lots of things in there. So just go look.
I will add links to those in the show notes, Kerry. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with us. I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening through to the end of today's episode. If you found this episode helpful, then share it with someone. The more we can spread the word about, the beautiful practices that are available to you as you are trying to conceive, the better. You never know who may be struggling. Now, on the next episode of the podcast, I am speaking with Catherine from Badass Fertility, and she is going to be speaking to us about all things mindset, getting your mind in the right place, and getting your baby. She is such a fun person to speak to. This is a conversation that if you have been struggling and you're finding that the overwhelm, the anxiety of trying to conceive is taking over your life, this is an episode that you'll want to hear. So I can't wait to have you back on that episode next week. Until then, I am sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.